Imagine looking up at the stars tonight and realizing that the silence isn't empty, it's deliberate, and the one thing we've been searching for our entire existence has been watching us back the whole time, waiting for us to finally figure out what they already know. But before we get to the civilization that's probably known about us for longer than humans have had language, we need to start with something else entirely. Alright, let's go. Number 10. The signal that almost broke science. In 1977, astronomer Jerry Eman at Ohio State University was reviewing printouts from the Big Ear radio telescope when he saw a sequence so anomalous that he circled it and wrote one word: wow. The signal had arrived from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius at the specific frequency of 1420 MHz, the natural emission line of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. That frequency is significant because any civilization trying to announce itself would logically choose it, a universal reference point. The signal lasted 72 seconds, rose rapidly in intensity, and then vanished. And here's what no one talks about. It was never detected again, despite thousands of hours of follow-up observations from dozens of observatories across 4 continents. No known natural phenomenon produces that exact pattern, that exact frequency, that exact duration, and never repeats. The paradox is simple. Either this was a 1 in a billion technological failure, or something out there transmitted a message directly at Earth, and then went silent. But the part that should concern you is this. The signal was at least 30 times stronger than background noise, meaning the source would have needed to transmit with the power of a small star. And that kind of power suggests a civilization not just slightly ahead of us, but one operating on a scale we can't even model yet. Why would something that powerful send a single 72-second message and never speak again? Maybe because they weren't trying to talk to us at all. Maybe they were talking to someone else, and we just happened to be in the way. And that idea connects directly to something we'll get to in number 3 that makes this far more disturbing. Number 9. The star that dims like nothing we've ever seen. In 2015, astronomer Tabitha Boyajian at Yale University published a paper on a star designated KIC 8462852, and within weeks, the astrophysics community had a new word for things that shouldn't exist: Tabby's star. The Kepler Space Telescope had observed this star dimming by up to 22%, an impossibility if the cause was orbiting planets. For context, Jupiter is the largest planet in our system, and if it passed in front of our sun, it would dim sunlight by only 1%. 22% implies something covering more than a fifth of the star's entire disk. And that's not even the terrifying part. The dimming events were completely aperiodic. They didn't repeat on a schedule. Sometimes the star would flicker for days, sometimes for weeks, sometimes years apart. Natural explanations like dust clouds or cometary swarms were proposed and systematically ruled out because dust would have radiated infrared heat, and the Spitzer Space Telescope found none. The math says this is impossible for any known natural object. So what is it? One hypothesis, proposed by astronomer Jason Wright at Penn State, is that we might be seeing a megastructure, a partial Dyson swarm collecting energy from the star. If that's true, the civilization building it would have to be at least a Type 2 on the Kardashev scale, capable of harnessing the full output of a star. But the real implication is far worse. If Tabby's star is evidence of construction, the star is 1,480 light-years away, meaning we're seeing light that left before the fall of the Roman Empire. That civilization, if it exists, has had over a millennium to evolve further, and if they're building structures that dim stars, they're not hiding. They're just so far beyond us that we don't even register as relevant. Number 8. The ocean worlds that might be watching us from total darkness. In 2019, planetary scientist Kevin Hand at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory published a detailed analysis of Enceladus, a moon of Saturn, and concluded that its subsurface ocean contains all 5 of the key ingredients for life as we know it: liquid water, energy, organic carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus. The Cassini probe flew through plumes erupting from the South Pole and directly tasted hydrogen gas, which on Earth is a clear sign of hydrothermal vents, ecosystems that thrive in absolute darkness without sunlight. But here's where it gets disturbing. The ocean beneath Enceladus's ice shell has been liquid for at least 4 billion years, longer than the time it took life to appear on Earth. If abiogenesis is even moderately probable, that ocean should be inhabited, and if it is, those organisms have evolved in an environment with no day, no night, no seasons, and no electromagnetic radiation reaching them from outside. Their entire reality would be chemical gradients and pressure differentials. They would have no eyes, no concept of light, no ability to detect anything beyond their own thermal and chemical world. So why would they be watching us? They wouldn't. But we're not the only ones looking. The same plumes that Cassini sampled contain silica nanoparticles, which can only form when superheated water interacts with rock at temperatures above 90 degrees Celsius. That's exactly the environment around hydrothermal vents, which on Earth are the leading candidate for the origin of life. If there are organisms in that ocean, they might never know the surface exists. But here's the open question no one can answer. Would they have developed intelligence without light, without a visual field, without the ability to see stars or planets? Would evolution ever produce a mind capable of building a radio telescope? Maybe not. But then again, we're the ones who assumed intelligence requires eyes, and that assumption might be the most human bias of all. Number 7. The exoplanet where rain falls sideways at 5,400 miles per hour. In 2016, a team led by astronomer David Singh at Johns Hopkins University used the Hubble and Spitzer space telescopes to map the atmosphere of HD 119733b, a blue exoplanet 63 light-years away. They found something that should not exist. The planet is tidally locked, meaning one side always faces its star with temperatures reaching 1700 degrees Celsius, while the dark side is only slightly cooler because the atmosphere circulates heat at ferocious speeds. Winds on this planet blow at 5,400 miles per hour, 7 times the speed of sound, and the rain is molten glass, silicate particles condensing in the upper atmosphere and falling sideways because the horizontal wind speeds exceed vertical terminal velocity. This is not science fiction. This is data from 2 space telescopes, cross-validated over 5 years. But the real reason this planet belongs on this list is not the weather. It's the color. HD 189733b is deep cobalt blue, not from oceans, but from a haze of silicate particles that scatter blue light exactly the way Earth's atmosphere scatters sunlight. From a distance, it would look almost like home. And that's the disturbing implication. A civilization on a nearby world looking at our solar system with the same instruments we use would see a pale blue dot. We would look almost identical to a planet with sideways glass rain and 50,400 mile per hour winds. They would have no way to know the difference. So if they were out there, watching, they would see a blue planet and have no reason to suspect it contains anything but hell. Which means the reverse is also true. We have identified dozens of exoplanets in the habitable zone, but we have no idea which ones are actually habitable. We could be looking at another Earth right now and mistaking it for a death world. Or worse, we could be looking at a civilization that has already seen us and is waiting to see what we do next. Number 6. The Dyson sphere candidate that disappeared from the sky. In 1960, physicist Freeman Dyson published a paper arguing that any technologically advanced civilization would eventually need to dismantle its home planet and rebuild it as a swarm of energy collecting satellites around its star. It was a thought experiment. No one expected to find one. But in 2012, astronomer Jeff Marcy at the University of California, Berkeley, led a search through the Kepler data for exactly this signature irregular dimming from artificial structures. They found 7 candidates. One of them, designated KIC 8462852, we already talked about, but another, KIC 12557548, was even stranger. This star dimmed by up to 65% every 15.8 hours, and the dimming pattern was inconsistent, sometimes blocking more light, sometimes less. The leading natural explanation was a disintegrating planet, but there's a problem. Disintegrating planets leave dust that should have been blown away by stellar radiation pressure within a few thousand years. This star has been dimming this way for as long as Kepler observed, and ground-based observations going back to 1995 show the same pattern. So either we caught a planet in the final moments of its existence, a 1 in a million coincidence, or something is actively maintaining an artificial structure. But here's what no one talks about. After 2015, follow-up observations using the Infrared Telescope Facility in Hawaii found that the star had stopped dimming. It was just normal again. No explanation. No debris cloud, no dust, nothing. The pattern simply ended. Think about that. If it was a disintegrating planet, where did the debris go? If it was a natural cloud, why did it vanish on a human timescale? And if it was a megastructure, why would it suddenly stop operating? Unless it wasn't a power collector at all. Unless it was something else entirely. And that connects to number 2 in a way that will make your stomach drop. Number 5. The radio silence that screams louder than any signal. In 1961, astronomer Frank Drake wrote the first equation to estimate the number of detectable civilizations in the Milky Way. His own input numbers, which he later called conservative, gave an answer of 10,000 active, communicating civilizations in our galaxy right now. And we have heard absolutely nothing. This is the Fermi paradox, named for physicist Enrico Fermi, who famously asked, "Where is everybody?" But the real paradox is not the silence. The real paradox is that we've been listening for less than 100 years, and we've already concluded that no one is there. That's like standing on a beach, scooping up 1 cup of water, and declaring the ocean has no fish. The Arecibo message, sent in 1974, was a 3-minute broadcast aimed at the globular cluster M13, 25,000 light-years away. It won't arrive for another 24,000 years, and in that time, any civilization capable of receiving it could have risen, evolved, and gone extinct. But the part that should concern you is this. Silence is not evidence of absence. It's evidence of either rarity or intentional quiet. And if you were a civilization that had survived for millions of years, you would know something we are only beginning to suspect. Broadcasting your location in a galaxy full of unknown agents is not a scientific project. It's a military decision. We have been shouting into the dark since the invention of radio. We have sent television signals, radar pulses, and deliberate messages to dozens of star systems. If there is any civilization within 50 light-years with receiving technology even slightly ahead of ours, they already know we exist. The only question is why they haven't answered. Maybe they're waiting. Maybe they're afraid. Or maybe they've already seen what happens to civilizations that announce themselves, and they're watching us make the same mistake they watched someone else make 1 billion years ago. Number 4. The Galactic Federation hypothesis that sounds ridiculous until you do the math. In 2011, physicist John Learned at the University of Hawaii and Michael Hipke at the Institute for Data Processing in Germany published a paper analyzing whether artificial signals from an advanced civilization could be hidden in supernova light curves. Their conclusion was that a sufficiently advanced civilization could modulate the neutrino output of a collapsing star to send a signal across the galaxy. That's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is that they found 3 supernovae with anomalous light curves that did not match any known stellar physics. The statistical probability that all 3 were natural was less than 1 in 1,000. But here's where it gets worse. The Galactic Federation hypothesis, first proposed by Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev in 1964, suggests that advanced civilizations might form a kind of network, exchanging information but not physical contact because interstellar travel is simply too expensive. The math supports this. Sending a radio signal across the galaxy costs a negligible amount of energy compared to sending a ship. So if there is a galactic community, it would be a community of listeners and broadcasters, not travelers. And if that community exists, Earth has been broadcasting for a century. We are the equivalent of a tribe in the Amazon hearing a radio for the first time and shouting back without knowing who else might be listening. What no one talks about is what happens next. If we are being watched, it's not by ships in orbit. It's by telescopes aimed at our planet from hundreds of light years away, collecting our radio leakage, analyzing our atmospheric composition, and watching our cities light up the night side of Earth. They would know we discovered fire. They would know we split the atom. They would know we are approaching the first great filter of any technological species. And they would be watching to see if we survive it. Number 3. The WOW signal's origin star that we just identified 40 years later. In 2022, astronomer Alberto Caballero at the University of Vigo published a paper that traced the WOW signal back to its most likely source star. Using high-precision astrometry from the Gaia spacecraft, he identified 2MASS 192819822640123, a Sun-like star 1,800 light-years away in the constellation Sagittarius. The star is almost an exact match for our own Sun in temperature, mass, and metallicity, and it has at least 1 exoplanet. But here's the detail that should stop you cold. The star is not alone. It's part of a wide binary system, meaning 2 stars orbiting each other. Planets in binary systems are common. We've found hundreds. But a civilization evolving in a binary system would have a completely different concept of time, of seasons, of stability. They would have two suns in their sky, sometimes close, sometimes far apart. Their calendars would be based on two orbital periods. Their myths would have twin creators. And if they looked at our solar system, they would see a single stable star and probably conclude that life on a single star planet would be impossible because there's no backup, no second sun to provide energy when the first fluctuates, no second gravitational anchor to stabilize the orbits. They might look at our lonely star and see a dead world. But they sent the WOW signal. They aimed a transmitter at our coordinates, with our frequency, at our time in history, and then went silent. Why? Maybe because they saw what we were doing. The year the WOW signal arrived, 1977, was also the year the Voyager probes were launched, carrying golden records with images and sounds of Earth. We announced ourselves to the galaxy on a physical object. They would have seen that, and they would have had to make a choice. Do we keep talking to a species that just threw a bottle into the cosmic ocean? Or do we wait and see if they're smart enough to listen before they speak again? Number 2. The civilization that should have already eaten the galaxy. In 2018, astrophysicist Jonathan Carroll Nellenbach at the University of Rochester modeled the spread of a self-replicating interstellar probe across the Milky Way. His conclusion was devastating. Any civilization with even moderately advanced robotics and rocketry could, within a few 100 million years, send probes to every star system in the galaxy. The probes would arrive, build copies of themselves using local materials, and continue. The timescale of the galaxy is 13 billion years. So here's the paradox. If even one civilization in the history of the Milky Way had built such probes, they would have finished colonizing every single star system, including ours, long before Earth even formed. We should not exist. The fact that we do means either no civilization has ever done this, which contradicts everything we know about convergent evolution and technological inevitability, or someone did, and they chose not to. And that choice is the most terrifying possibility of all, because it means someone out there is capable of galactic-scale engineering and has decided to leave us alone, not because they can't reach us, because they're watching to see what we become. The part that no one wants to talk about is what happens when they decide we've become something they don't like. If they have self-replicating probes, they have had them for billions of years. They could have arrived yesterday. They could arrive tomorrow. And we would have no warning, no defense, and no way to know if we passed or failed until the moment of judgment. This is not science fiction. This is the logical conclusion of the Drake equation combined with known physics. Either we are alone, which is statistically impossible given the number of stars, or someone is out there, and they have chosen not to touch us. Yet. And that brings us to number 1. Number 1, the civilization that has probably been watching us for the entire history of our species. In 2021, the Breakthrough Listen project, led by astronomer Andrew Simeon at the University of California, Berkeley, completed the most comprehensive search for artificial signals from the nearest 1 million stars. They found nothing. But they also found something far more important. They found that the background level of radio noise in the galactic center is thousands of times higher than predicted, consistent with leakage from a densely populated urban region of space. The same team had already discovered 72 fast radio bursts from a single source, repeating in a pattern that could not be explained by any known natural process. And in 2022, they detected a signal from Proxima Centauri, our closest neighboring star, at 982 megahertz. A frequency not used by any human technology. The signal shifted in frequency exactly as expected if it came from a planet orbiting that star. It disappeared after 5 hours and has never been seen again. But here's the verdict. We have been looking for a civilization that announces itself. We have been listening for a greeting, a beacon, a deliberate message. That is not how an advanced intelligence behaves. An advanced intelligence watches. It observes. It collects data. It waits until the subject of observation is advanced enough to notice being watched, and then it decides whether to reveal itself. The WOW signal, the dimming of Tabby's star, the anomalous supernovae, the repeating fast radio bursts, the silence of the galaxy. These are not separate mysteries. They are the same mystery viewed from different angles. Something out there is active. Something is manipulating stellar scale energy. Something sent a signal from a sun-like star 1,800 light-years away and then never spoke again. And something has had billions of years to fill this galaxy with probes and chose not to. The only explanation that fits all the evidence is that we are being observed. Not casually, not occasionally, but continuously, by a civilization so far beyond us that our entire recorded history is less than a single frame in their long observation. They have watched us learn to walk, learn to speak, learn to split the atom. And they are watching right now as we learn to look back. If you want to see more videos like this, click the video on screen now and make sure to subscribe.